Good evening. Welcome to a Wednesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show as we watch the wrap up of Florida's rout over Virginia and the last of the big SEC versus ACC competitions. Tonight is supposed to be about recruiting, though, and flipping and all the things that Florida's been doing right. So, tonight on the show, we have some terrific guests to help us get through that. She didn't keep up with it quite as well as the top people, but she keeps up with pretty much everything, and that includes recruiting. Allie P. Wilbur will be back after a week off, and she's got some news about a new show. We'll talk to her. We've also got the dean, Tony Barnhart, on the show tonight. What is with this talk about the fact they're going to put the best teams in? And if you look at the schedule, look at the 12 teams they've got, what are we going to wind up with in the end? Well, it's going to be interesting to find out. But it's not looking right now, as Shane Beamer says, like it matters how tough your schedule is anymore. That can't be right. And Fansberry will be along, hopefully, at the end of the game to tell us about this 9-0 Florida team putting a whipping on Virginia right now as we speak. Stay tuned. The Buddy Martin Show is on the air. Tell your friends and neighbors to come and join us.
Buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome. We're back to our home in Panama City, broadcasting hard against the Bay here. And be with you for the rest of the time until we get ready to go back for the big bowl game, whatever that might be. I'm hoping it's going to be the Gator. A lot of news today. How do you keep up with what's going on in this world with the flipping and the flopping and the recruiting and the signing and all that stuff? We hadn't even scratched the surface. But here's somebody who does more than scratch the surface daily, weekly. Good evening to Allie P. Wilbur, that dynasty that's developing down there in Tampa Bay and Orlando and all down the area. She does her show, A Peek at the Gators, and now she's going to do a peek at something else. Good evening to you, Allie. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Wonderful. It's been a good couple of days and a good Thanksgiving. And, boy, the Gators are just, I don't want to say mopping up, but they're doing awfully well. If you look just the flippers,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, flipping has been unbelievable. I was telling somebody today, my friend, about it. I remember when Urban Meyer flipped his first player. People went, "Oh, can you do that? Is that legal? Whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like everything. In Florida, I think the last count I heard, Al, you would know this, was 11 players in 15 days. They flipped.
Yep.
And a really good bunch of good-looking guys on paper. We'll see where that goes. Mm-hmm. I get it. They can still flip back, whatever. And the bottom line is that this direction has changed. We've talked about this a lot during the year.
Mm-hmm.
Some been a little more reluctant than others to, I won't call it jump on the bandwagon, but they really acknowledge Billy is the right person. And while I don't think everybody is there, it's certainly looking more and more like that. And now, what did National Signing Day do, Allie? And tell us what you think of what they got.
So Florida did really, really well. I don't think any necessarily surprises today. I think we thought we might see a surprise or two. And, recruits are so fickle this day and age. So I don't think that there's anything Florida could have done differently with the couple guys that we thought maybe we were getting. I just think recruiting is just the Wild West right now at the moment. But we are going to finish more than likely with about the 10th ranked class overall. 3 weeks ago, we had the 51st ranked class overall.
Hey,
so
51st. That's pretty good.
It is a massive improvement. And I think, I am not prepared to say that Billy is the right guy. I am absolutely prepared to say he's earned a fourth year and it's worth continuing to figure out if he is the right guy. This turnaround is huge and we have to continue to build on it. 10th, the 10th best class won't be good enough every year for sure, but it is incredibly difficult to out recruit your record. And Billy Napier, that is something, even though we haven't gotten those, top 5 classes that Florida fans want and that we will need to see to win a championship, every single year he has out recruited his record. And that is a really, really difficult thing to do. And I think players want to play with DJ Lagway. I think people felt more confident committing to us after the vote of confidence came down for Napier from Scott Strickland. I think the defensive turnaround we saw from the bye week on is encouraging to these young players and something they feel like they want to be a part of. And all of those things are massively positive for the Gators.
Well, okay, that's fair. And certainly it's fair to say you're not sure yet of the guy. Let's be honest. 4 weeks ago, nobody wanted him.
Sure.
I said it was a dead man walking.
Yeah.
But my opinion on that, before Scott Strickland gave him the vote of confidence, but now everybody has their own personal narrative. Oh, I saw Billy was doing this. And everybody saw it when it happened. The fact is, almost nobody really believed Billy Napier could do what he did. Almost nobody.
Yeah, I mean, it was a heck of a turn. It was a heck of a turnaround, and it's one of those things where, we talked over the summer, and 7-5 would have been a success on the season.
Coach of the year, they said. We said if he does that.
We talked about it in July. I think it's honestly the fact that those games that we lost in the beginning of the year, it's that we looked lost and that they didn't feel in any way competitive. I think had we still lost them, but they had been dogfights, we would have had a different opinion of him all the way through the season. But the turnaround has been incredible. And the buy-in from these guys has been incredible because the effort level towards the end of the season, it was totally different than the effort level at the beginning of the season. And he should get all the credit, all the flowers for such a huge turnaround. And now we have to see where we go from here, because while 7-5 is an improvement this year, it's progress. It's progress from last season. It will not always be enough.
Let me present to you the residual impact, I like to call it. It's like overall, if you don't have the number 1 class or number 3 class or 5 class, but you consistently get the 4s, you get to 8s, 9s, 10s, with the way players flip today, how you can recruit them, how you can get them out of the transfer portal.
Sure.
Does it really matter as much? I don't think it does.
I think some of that kind of TBD. If that makes sense, we'll need a little bit more data to see if top 10 teams, averaging top 10 teams recruiting wise will translate to national championships. Right now, the answer to that is no, but we haven't had enough years of the transfer portal to be able to say yes or no. Expanding it to 12 is going to make having a top 3 or a top 5 class matter less, because you're going to have those opportunities to pull an upset in the playoffs, but the transfer portal, that's something else that I think Napier does incredibly well. Recruit the transfer portal, but build real relationships with these players so that if they aren't happy at their first choice destination, he continued to keep that real relationship, and then they circle back to Florida. And I think Napier is a relationship guy. I think honestly he would have done a great job as a head coach 10 years ago when relationships mattered maybe more now, because now there's NIL and that has become a major player in this. But he does well in the transfer portal with guys he had these relationships with prior to, because they see him as genuine. They felt like they had an actual connection to him. Their families feel comfortable sending their kids to him. And all of that is powerful and, a huge advantage for Florida, I think.
Well, Allie, let me just inform you about something around here. I'm teaching this to Shane Matthews, and I'll teach it to you. We're not in the business of reporting things. We're in the business of predicting things. We have insight. We call the shot before it happens. Anybody can say after the game, oh, yeah, well, they did this. We got to say what's going to happen now. We have to say, yes, this program has turned around. Yes, this program is going, what's acceptable next year? I don't know. 9, 10 games would be nice. The question is, in our opinion, we're the experts. They evaluate players. We evaluate them.
Yeah.
Make your evaluations on a coach. And I get it. Not ready to say yet. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I'm going to go ahead and say right now, Billy is the man now to be there the next few years. He will win 9 or 10 next year. Maybe not as fast as he'd like to, but with what I've seen in a shorter period of time, the paradigm now we have, we know you can reverse fortunes. You can get players quicker. It's like free agency in football and baseball when it changed it.
Sure.
You can go out in the portal and get players. Billy said today his next thing now is retention. He's going to spend time trying. I don't know if you heard his long talk today. He did about an hour talk after recruiting. He's going to go out and try to keep the players he's got.
Yeah.
There's going to be some flipping. There's already been a couple of guys today that have gone, but you're going to lose people because you've got to get people. And sometimes it's a good thing. Let them go, get somebody else. The main thing is the core group he's got. If
Yeah.
he gets a couple of really good, experienced wide receivers, this team could be really good. And let's be honest. The other thing about it, and Shane does say this, he says, if you go back to the early in the season, not only did Florida make some dumb mistakes, they got really snake bit. They couldn't get lucky on anything. Nothing went their way. And at the end of the year, what's happened? Things started going their way. Certainly the quarterback play was one of the things that caused it, probably the things. Other things developed. This defense is, I mean, come on, man. This defense is playing lights out right now. And you say, well, FSU didn't look very good. Why didn't they? One of the reasons was the defense. They dominated them. So I think when you add up the fact that they're just a couple of pairs away from being, I won't say elite, but really competitive on offense and could be really good on defense. The schedule's not as tough next year. I predict good things. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I'm not going to wait till everybody who jumps on the bandwagon. Florida's looking at 9 or 10 wins next year because they kept Billy aboard. And this is the other thing I want to say. Somebody very talented who has a lot of contacts like you, other people who are very good writers, whatever. I want to know what happened the week of the game, the UCF game, where everything was transformed. The more you read from the players saying, well, we began to believe in this. Well, we understood this. Well, we got to people, the light turned on big time there. And although it didn't show up in the Tennessee game, it certainly did show up. This is a completely different ball club. I never thought it was possible, but I got to say, it happened. I want to know more about how and why it happened.
So I would love to know too. Couple things there. First of all, the schedule's not a lot easier next year. I mean, we play the exact schedule on reverse, and so maybe we don't travel to Texas or whatever, but they come to the Swamp. So it's still going to be a difficult schedule. I don't think this team at the end of the year is a 10-win team, and the talent is there to be a 10-win team. I think anything less than 10 wins next year is disappointing, honestly, with the talent that we have returning. They talked about making practices competitive. I wish I had the opportunity to sit down with Coach Napier and kind of dive into that a little bit more. Because that seems to have been part of the catalyst in this. Now, your buddy Urban Meyer will tell you that practices should always be super competitive. That's kind of how he created those teams. He created every single thing was a competition. And, I don't know if all of a sudden that happened, or if maybe it was just a poor choice of words. And what he should have said was, we decided to dial it up and make it even more competitive, and if that's what it was. But the defense did start to believe in themselves, but more than anything, they started to go at 100%, and they were not going at 100% before. So they figured out a way to get them to click on full cylinders and to give full effort all the time. And I think that was the difference maker. I think one of my reservations that I still have is some of the things that they figured out felt like they took a very long time to figure out. And so the next time there's an issue, will it take a long time to figure out? Or has he learned from his mistakes in the past, and that is one of those time will tell kind of things. I think he's a really good relationship guy, like I said. I think that he's a good CEO. I would be interested to see if we do get an OC in here. I think that will help. Think about trying one of the things Florida's really struggled with this season and over the last 3 years, if you look at the stats, is that middle 8, the 4 minutes going into halftime, the 4 minutes coming out of halftime. That 4 minutes coming out of halftime in particular, your success or failure rate has a lot to do with the halftime adjustments that you make. Now imagine being a head coach. It's your job to go in and motivate your entire team during your halftime speech, right? Because that's your job as the head coach. But as the OC, it's also your job to be sitting down and scheming up adjustments so that you can go out and play a better second half than you did first half. I think it's got to be very difficult to wear those two hats at exactly the same time. And I think maybe relinquishing that offensive control would help, right? Somebody can be sitting in a room, sitting on the side of the locker, sitting wherever, scheming up the changes, and you can be doing what you do best, which is motivate this team. So I think that, there's room for improvement, but I am really impressed with what has happened the second half of the season. I don't know how you objectively look at it and aren't impressed.
Allie, my friend Shane Matthews, who knows the thing about calling plays, says to me, Billy will never relinquish control calling plays. You can call it what you want to. He will never. He can't help himself. He's got to have his hands on it. Now, you might talk me into getting an assistant, somebody helping more with special teams or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Defense. But calling plays is kind of his DNA. As it is with Spurrier, as it is with Urban, etc. They want to be in control and charge. Now, just the name offensive coordinator, I thought about this at first. I thought, well, you can't have an offensive line coach being your offensive coordinator.
Steven Asio was at one point.
We finished. Well, he was. He inherited it, but he really wasn't because the guy was calling play was Urban. I mean, he can call him offensive coordinator, but you see, but I will say this. If you look at this of the total football picture, by the way, Florida did win the game 87 was the final score, big time, and they go 9-0. And the last time they did, they won a national championship, I think. So congratulations, beating Virginia. And boy, they're just romping over the ACC. I think they're leading. And by the way, the game Alabama it could be an 11 out of 12 for the SEC in basketball, right? But anyway, so back to the idea of the offensive coordinator. Everything is based on running the football, even the passing game.
Sure.
And the reason I'm really familiar with this was Terry Bradshaw's offense was all built on play action passes, everything. And he kept teaching me that. I can think, I want a guy's going to put it up and throw it and pass it, whatever. But when he can go out and run the football effectively, he's got 3 running backs he uses now. And he opens up those lanes for those runners. Everything else opens up, including the passing game.
Yeah.
And it holds the linebackers. So maybe in name, that's okay. You call your offensive coordinator, whatever he is. Fact is, Billy's always going to be the play caller. He is. Now, we'll see how it goes. You're right. I agree. I've said that. I wrote it beforehand. He needs to let go of something. We'll see what that is. On other news, how about UCF going after Lincoln Riley? Are you kidding me?
I mean, listen, you just lost your head coach to FSU, and you think you can go ahead and steal Lincoln Riley? I don't know. I don't get it. I mean,
crazy. Really crazy.
I mean, I guess shoot your shot, right? Like the worst you can be told is no. But I find it amusing that a very down Florida State program is able to steal the head coach of UCF to be their offensive coordinator.
There things for Gus Malzahn that he wouldn't become an OC at a program that's faltering. I mean, really, that's bizarre.
It was, I think the UCF faithful were not pumped about how things were going with Gus Malzahn. I don't think UCF would have fired him, but I think he was feeling some heat there and saw an opportunity, but how, for all of these, these UCF fans that'll tell us the big four, your head coach was literally just stolen to be the OC at a team that won 2 games this year.
Yes, good point. Very much so. Good point. Well, anyway, so let's talk about something really important.
Okay.
Allie Peak Wilbur's new show. Man, you was taking off here on the SEC. A peek inside the SEC. Starts on Sunday, starring none other than Allie Peak Wilbur on the broadcast. And now, what's that all about? And how are you going to fit that in with raising two sets of twins and taking care of Eric and doing your show and my show? How are you going to do all this?
I don't know. We're still trying to figure that out. But, honestly, probably about 20 years ago, I really wanted to write a book. And I wanted to call it A Peek Inside the SEC. And my initial concept was that I wanted to travel to every school in the conference. And at that point, there was only 12. But, and I wanted to have a chapter on each school talking about where to eat, where to stay, where the cool traditions, like what the cool traditions were of the program, like things that you could, if you went on a road trip, you could take the book with you and you could kind of have a guide to where you were going. And that was my initial, this was before I got married. This was I really, really was interested in doing that. And, I don't know that it is practical with my, million children and all the things that I do to pack up an RV and go tour all of these things during football season and write it down in a book. But I do think I can use YouTube as a platform to, expand and kind of do what I'm doing, but talk about it for all of the SEC programs and talk to beat writers at those places and learn more about all of these schools in the SEC. It's the best conference in college football, and it's there's just so many storylines there always.
Well, that's exciting. That's very exciting. Congratulations on that. I can't wait to hear it this weekend. And I'm sure you have many fine guests, none other than Tony Barnhart. I'm sure will be on your list.
I would love it.
He's up next right here. He's coming up with that. You can invite him on the air right here. But first, I want to tell you about the program, main sponsor, the folks who've been with us for a long time, who do a great, great job. Meldon Law, they support the team. I got to tell you, during the time when we were all doubting and complaining and saying Billy was a dead man walking, I said it. This guy, along with his friend, Freddie Wiebe, kept saying, no, this guy's doing it right. Give him time. And we'll see. But Jeffrey Meldon is a loyal Gator. He also is a loyal sponsor. He's also the official entry law firm for University of Florida, Meldon Law. Check them out. I just recently used them on a matter. I'm very happy with the things that are going on now in terms of law and litigation. So I encourage you to both get on his Facebook page and get some of his free tickets to gymnastics and basketball, and also call him up if you need an attorney. Meldon Law, they won't back down. And back in the day when we were grubbing for a living, and still are, by the way, guys like this never back down. He was always in their face. He was the hard-driving Tony Barnhart.
Oh, my.
Eating to you, Tony. How you doing?
Oh, my. Yeah, oh, my, buddy. We have a lot of memories, don't we, buddy?
We do. That's what they are. We live off memories now.
That's right.
Young people like Allie who are making the news now. So
that's right. That's right. And the older we get, the bigger the lies are. So that's
about it. Now, let me take this occasion. I've announced this. She's announced it. She's starting her new show, another podcast.
Wonderful.
She's like 30 of them already. And she just said she had 1 million kids. And she had a husband to take care of who's, like having a kid, and Eric. And she does about 19 of these podcasts. I would like, on behalf of this young woman who's a superstar in my mind, has been for quite some time, I like Pete Wilbur, to invite you to be on her show whenever you all can work it out.
I would be honored.
I would love it. We're going to do a peek inside the SEC is what it's going to be called.
Wonderful.
And it would be fun. Well, I would love that. That would be very cool.
Like she needs me to do that.
Hey, listen, I will take all the help I can get. Absolutely.
Well, buddy, I always knew you had a career as an agent coming up, so that would be fine. You can be Allie's agent. So.
Yeah, that's right. So do I get a commission of $1 for that, Allie?
Yes, I will send you $1 in the mail.
Okay, good. Well, Tony, I just read this rant, and he's right. Shane Beamer saying, why are we bothered with having him playing a tough schedule? The committee doesn't respect it or honor it anyway. The 12 came out. We still got another shot at it after this weekend.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think any of us really have known how this will turn out. And I'm willing to say let's wait and see. I'm not so sure I like the way things are going, Tony. How about you?
Uh, I'm a big believer in the 12 team playoff. Now, we can sit here and argue about the method of picking the 12 teams, and I'm willing to listen to arguments on that. But we knew that number 13 was not going to be happy in 14 and 15 and 16. Somebody said, with all those spots, with all those 12 spots, nobody's going to argue. No, no, no. The more spots you have, the more teams who it's exponential. You have more teams that believe they deserve to have a shot. In the old 14 playoff, there might have been 7, 8 teams that really deserved it. And this is going to happen now. So let's do it a couple of years, guys, and we're going to make some changes. And after 2 years, we're going to go to 16 teams with no buys. But we got to get through this year and next year.
All right, Allie, you agree with that?
I mean, I think that's probably where we're headed. I don't love it. I 12 is too many, in my opinion. I was good with the BCS. I didn't think we needed to expand past that. But here we are. And what Beamer said is so correct, though. If we are not going to look at, schools that beat multiple top 25, if we're not going to look at, think about in the Ole Miss situations, like sometimes head to head, and we're not going to take that into consideration when we're talking about placement. I understand the concept of conference championship weekend. If you that game not hurting you because you're playing an additional game, I can follow that line of thinking. My problem is there are teams playing in conference championships with worse resumes than teams in other conferences that didn't make their conference's championship. And that is hard to wrap my head around.
My problem is, Tony, I'm looking at the list of 12. I'm thinking, what's wrong with this picture? First of all, we all think the SEC is the most powerful conference in college football. You got to go way down to start taking the teams out. We're waiting through Oregon, SMU, Boise State, Penn State, Notre Dame before you even get to Georgia, and there was obviously Texas earlier. And you're going down the list to Ohio State, Indiana, Arizona State. These teams are not better. We all say the same thing. How would they do in the SEC? Arizona State was 10-2. How would they do? How would they do in the SEC? Look at teams like Notre Dame, 11-1. What they do in the SEC? Penn State, 11-1. Right. They would win 9 games in the SEC. So,
which buddy is why you're going to see 4 SEC and 4 Big Ten teams when the brackets are announced on Sunday. I mean, the SEC has been rewarded, but I didn't see any way that they were going to get 5 teams in the playoffs. I just didn't see it. I didn't think they could really get to 4, but then the committee figured out a way to do that by dropping Alabama only to 11. And of course, Miami. And if Miami does what they're supposed to do, we're not even having this argument. So it's going to be a pretty wild weekend. But I've talked to enough people who are taking a long range view on this thing. Now, the complaining is going to be out of the roof, over the top. But I just think that at the end of the day, when we get to 16, are people going to complain at 17, 18? Sure, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But let's just sort of watch it.
I'm willing to wait and see, because I was a proponent of this a long time ago. And as you know, I've told you 100 times my great game plan of 30 years ago, how to boil it down. And we talked about it, how to make it more competitive, get rid of these crappy games and let them play for games on TV that matter and play for the title. And we're getting that. I get, you're probably right, but it's how we get there, the concern to me, because I don't trust them. Allie, I don't trust them. I just don't.
You don't trust the committee?
No.
Well, and I think that's, we saw last year, and I understand it was 4 last year and it's 12 this year, but they make the rules up as they go along, right? And so I don't know that we can, what they said to this week and how the choices were made this week are going to necessarily apply next week. So I'm interested to see, is that the case? Because that has not been the case in prior years, that we have just kind of guessed all along, which if that's the case, I don't understand why we're doing these reveals every single week. I can wrap my head around the fact that those people sit in a room and they decide, but if you're not using the same formula each time, then only do it once at the end.
Allie, it's all for the entertainment value. Okay, it is not. You know, I heard a coach one time say some people use statistics like a drunk uses a lamppost. It's for support, not for illumination, and that is what we're dealing with here. This is a half hour to 1 hour show every week to argue about these rankings and get people talking about college football but yeah, that's what drives me up the wall is the fact that you took one set of circumstances and reached one conclusion, and the next week you come by and you have the same set of circumstances, but you don't reach the same conclusion. And that's
even think about the FSU situation last year. I think that they came to the right conclusion. I honestly think Georgia had just as much an argument, if not more, than Florida State that they should have been in there, given body of work and what and the eye test. But you didn't need to tell us beforehand that what ended up happening wasn't actually going to happen, which I felt like is what they took 3 or 4 weeks saying, leading up into, and then it was like, oh, whoops, never mind. Sorry, Florida State's out. Like, you didn't have to do that, but it makes it feel like they are doing it for ratings. They are doing it for the entertainment value, which is what makes people not trust the committee. I think people could have wrapped their head around what happened last year to Florida State. Again, what I think is the right conclusion, had they not made statements in the weeks leading up, making people believe Florida State still legitimately had a shot. The second Jordan Travis went down, if they were going to use that as a reason to keep him out, they should have started keeping him out at that moment.
Well, the biggest topic, if Alabama gets in, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to absolutely lose their minds because it's a situation where you wonder if Greg Sankey is pulling the levers and trying to get this. First of all, they had to get a fourth team in. I mean, I didn't know how they were going to do it. I wrote somebody last night. I said, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for how they're going to get Alabama in. I said, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to figure it out. And that's exact. Now, a couple of things have still got to fall into place, but yeah. And I didn't see a situation where the SEC only got 3.
Tony, it's like that championship game when Florida played in Alabama when Shane was playing and the pick that he threw, and Alabama won that game. And people say if Alabama had lost that first SEC championship game, there wouldn't have been any more. They stopped playing them. That was so they were.
Well, I know that's the way that Roy Kramer felt, the associate commissioner of the SEC. He and I've had many conversations about that, but it worked out. And here's the other thing: people say, "Well, let's just do away with the conference championship games." I don't know what planet those folks are living on, but the SEC is not going to give. Yeah, okay, well, give me back the money, and we'll have a conversation. But then I guess, and here's the other thing, and people don't hammer on this enough, is that this process that we've been going through, everybody's been going through, it is not to pick the 12 best teams to play in the playoff. It never was about the 12 best teams. It's about taking care of. They couldn't have got this deal done, guys, without the conference championship games and guarantee. The Big 12 had to be guaranteed they would get a spot in the playoffs. Okay, they did the Group of 5 thing to placate that and keep it out of court. So again, it's not the 12 best teams. It's the five most deserving conference champions, and then the committee ends up picking the.
I got news for you. Allie's absolutely right. And some part of me wants to say, go back to the BCS. Go back, take the men out of it. The people screw it up, and you're right about that.
I can give you about 125 million.
It's all about show. I get it. I'm the one. I listen. I claim it. I'm the one who kept pushing for it. The fact is, though, they just always got to screw it up with some dumb decision. And I hope it doesn't besmirch the process. I think it won't. It's like everything else, all the warts, everything else, when it's all said and done. And if a really good Texas team wins the championship, nothing more will be said about it. They'll put it together and go to the next level. But that was, and Tony, let me remind folks about one thing that only the old codgers like us can say. You want people talking about your team and who should go? Go back to the days they picked the champion for the bowl games, and you argued about
Oh
who
yeah.
was number one. You never got to resolve it, but you argued about it all year and would have made great TV, but ESPN wasn't around on a way to figure out how to sell it. So things do change. Now, look, I'm not going to complain. I got to say the parts of it I like a lot. What we've seen down here in Florida, I don't know if the result of anything to do with a 12-team playoff, but it certainly gives fans hope that here's a team that was basically dead in the water, as I said, dead man walking not long ago, looking and talking about being in the playoffs next year. And you know what? They might be in the playoffs next
Yeah.
year.
Hope springs eternal.
All right, so where do we go from here? We got the conference championships games this weekend. Anything could happen, I suppose. There, don't expect it will be. You guys, any thoughts? Let me just read these teams off real fast for the ones who missed it last night. The number 12 team was Alabama. Like Tony said, they found some way to get them in. 11, Arizona State. I question that. Indiana 11-1, only because their record, not their schedule. Did they even play a ranked team besides Michigan? Well, wait, Michigan wasn't ranked. Tennessee is 9. Ohio State 8. They played almost no ranked teams. Georgia 7. Notre Dame 6. Penn State 5. I thought Penn State might finish higher. Boise State 4 and SMU 3. Now, who saw that coming? Tony, did you call that shot? I don't think so. Nobody did. Texas 2 and Oregon 1. Now, that's this week. Things can still change. That's what we got. We'll see if that is how it turns out in the end. I will say there have been some great football games played this year. I've really enjoyed those games. And if that's what the product is, having good football games on regularly and getting rid of these little cherry picking games they have, or these powder puff games, I'm for it. The game is better, but sometimes, Tony, it's hard to be able to explain why and how.
Well, the irony of all of this, when NIL with the transfer portal and all the issues that we're dealing with, is the game on the field, the game that we watch every Saturday,
That's true.
is better than it's ever been. I mean, we had a Vanderbilt, we had an Indiana. Those stories were not possible before this wave. And it allows you to spread out the players. And so somebody said, "Where is?" They were complaining about Georgia. Georgia fans are great. The Georgia fans are complaining about Georgia, and they're saying, "Where's our depth? We don't have any depth." No, you don't have any depth because some of your depths at Vanderbilt, some of your depths at Indiana, some of your depths are spread out all over the country, and that's the way it's going to be from this point forward.
Well, and that's exactly right. Nobody sticks around to be depth, and that'll be interesting to see if that gets even worse when we go down to 105 players. Because think about, rosters are 130 right now. A lot of those walk-ons with depth. So if these, the numbers that they have to be changing to 105, that's your scholarship count, but that's also your roster count. That is going to change things as well. There's going to be even less depth there, but nobody wants to stick around and earn their spot. Everybody wants to play immediately. And so they'll go somewhere where that can happen, whether that's a Georgia Tech or an Indiana, a Boise State, wherever they'll go so that they can get on the field.
And so they can get on the field and start the NIL deal. All right, that's the other thing that's involved here is these guys they might be playing some, but but they know they can get a better NIL deal somewhere else, and that's what's driving this thing. And that's a whole nother argument we got to have over the next 2 or 3 years.
Sorting out to do, that's for sure, in this whole situation. But the game is really, really good right now, and I hope it continues to be so. Looking at the situation as we see it right now, do you guys think the best team is going to Texas? Think Texas can win this thing?
I mean, can they? Sure.
Well, give me your top 2 teams, Allie. You and Tony both.
Okay. I mean, I probably Texas and Oregon. If I had to pick 2, I do think there's more parity this year than we've seen in a really long time, which does make it more fun, right? But I would say those are probably my top 2.
Well, I agree with Allie in that Oregon is the best team in the country right now. But on a given night when they're clicking, Texas is really good. I mean, they are really, really good. But it's been interesting to watch Georgia play this year. This team is not, from a talent standpoint, is not anything like Georgia's last three teams. Georgia's last three teams, two won the national championship, and the other one last year could have won the national championship. They were that good. This team isn't that good, but to their credit, uh, that comeback from against Georgia Tech, that the seeds for that were sown on September 28th when Georgia fell behind 28-0 to Alabama in Tuscaloosa, came back and took the lead. They did not win the game, but what they did do was find out, you know what, we're not out of any single game. So when they got down to Georgia Tech the other night, they fought back, and it's this Georgia team is not as talented, but they're pretty good. And the bracket, if they end up beating Texas, the bracket sets up really nicely.
That was a hell of a football game. That's one of the best football games that I've
It was.
ever seen. That was a good one.
Yeah, let me express one thing. I don't know if you got to go, Allie. I understand, but I want to get to your recruiting comments before you go. You hear a lot of talk now about players not going to class at all. You see the rules being bent in that regard. Coaches are happy now because they're going to be able to coach during the summer. Have players on field. They have more time with them during. I heard Billy Napier say something that I couldn't believe. He has 15 more days of practice. Is that going to help? He said, no, not really. He says, we're not going to practice all 15 days. Our kids have been doing this all year, and we don't need 15 days to get ready for the bowl game. And we've had them. We're going to have them longer in the spring. Be able to shoot, and that
Smart.
threw me. Does that surprise you, Tony?
It did. Well, I think most coaches will never turn down a day of practice if their life depended on it. And so, yeah, I'm a little surprised but I also agree that's very smart. That's it's you don't need that much, and you really don't need that much practice for a bowl game, for crying out loud. Let the guys get some rest.
I think it depends on when your bowl game is too. Florida's looking at probably having a bowl game somewhere between the 20th and the 23rd-ish of December. You're talking about exams happen during that time period as well, during that, because you're looking at the 15 days prior to, the 20th, which is essentially we're already in that window of time. They're not going to get 15 days between now and their bowl game, more than likely, or they'll be, cutting it close. I understand because of when the bowl game is going to be. I don't think if they were playing in a bowl game on January 7th that he would tell you he wasn't going to take all 15 practices. I just don't think they have the ability to do that. And the interesting thing, though, I don't know if you saw this, buddy, but Vernell Brown III said he's going to be practicing in those bowl game practices. Some of our young guys that are enrolling early have the ability to show up and practice, and those practices are important for young teams, and we are a young football team. We'll be trying to fill in some big holes with these guys we have coming in, but it's not practical to take all of them where our bowl game is going to fall.
Well, you're working at a different level. When you're working with incoming freshmen and guys coming back for their junior year, it's different. And that's probably smart too, as well. You can have too much of a good thing. You're right. I've never seen a coach yet turn down a chance to practice. They want more instead of less, but hopefully it'll work out for them. All right, Tony, any final thoughts on where we go from here? You sad? Hey, by the way, were you breaking news, Alex, saying Florida is not going to the Gator Bowl?
Oh, I don't know where they're going. I'm just,
The Gator Bowl's not going to be played. The Gator Bowl's not played till New Year's Day or whatever.
Yeah, the Gator Bowl's played New Year's Day. I mean, we've been projected all over the place. We should know in the next few days, right?
But something happen. I don't know. So much to keep up with. I can't. What teams are in the SEC? I don't even know anymore, Tony.
I saw one having us play at whatever, the St. Pete Bowl. I've seen us playing here in Tampa.
Birmingham Bowl, the Tampa.
I've seen us going to Memphis. I've seen us going to the Birmingham Bowl. I don't know where we're going to fall, but it's not going to be one of the later bowl games, obviously.
Here's the funny part about it, Tony. It used to matter which bowl they went to. It doesn't matter to most teams, unless you're a team like Florida trying to get back in the game. The second thing is the actual signing day used to be huge. Not so much anymore, Tony.
It hadn't been a big deal for a long time. For people sitting by the fax machine, and these people having parties and all this stuff. the early signing period and everything, the way it's set up, has changed that. Guys,
Yeah.
I will say one thing, guys, with the playoff. What I'm looking, if it happens, the game that I am looking forward to is Alabama
Huh.
at Notre Dame, which is
On camp
Alabama at
on
Notre
camp?
Dame, for crying out loud,
Just
on
blue blood. That
campus.
is a bucket list
One
game.
other,
Yes, it is.
you you guys remember that Tony said this. The response to the games on campus is
Mhm.
going to be tremendous. Okay, people are going to love it, and they're going to say, "Well, what?" And the number one seeds are going, "Well, wait a minute.
Mhm.
We didn't get a game on campus. I mean, we got to sit
Yeah.
out. We got to sit out the first game, but we didn't get a game on campus." So I think there's going to be tremendous pressure to play at least
And
two
they
rounds of
should.
the tournament
They should.
on
There's
campus.
nothing better.
Yeah, that would just tough. But think about this: Alabama going
Now,
to
Tony,
Notre
when they
Dame.
stormed the field there in South Bend, it'll be your fault.
That's fine. Just don't storm the field. At least the Notre Dame kids are smart enough not to try to put a
Wait a
flag
minute.
into
That's the knock at the
astroturf.
Gators. Hold on.
Okay.
Don't you forget about the fact that Florida State's been starting their sod cemetery all these years. They take sod with them every time they go somewhere to win.
Well, I have been to the sod cemetery. I understand that, but I just I love history, and I think that would
No,
be
I
from
agree.
a
I'm
historical
with you.
standpoint that would, and it'll be one of the
Yeah.
toughest tickets they've
Until I
ever
went to a
had at Notre
football
Dame.
game, see football games at Notre Dame, they were always a punching bag around the SEC. As you know, Tony, we hated Notre Dame always. But until I went there and covered a few games and came back, I thought, I understand why people think this is hallowed ground. Not just because of touchdown Jesus and all
Hmm.
the other things. Because I said it, if an alien came down and said, where do I want to watch college football? I know the temptation to say Tuscaloosa or Gaines, whatever. The fact is, Notre Dame's a great spot. It is really kind of like one of the birthplaces of great
Yep.
college football.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Tony,
It's
let
gonna
you
be
go
fun.
first. If Natalie, I mean, if I can get Natalie, where did I get that name from? If I can get you the girl who does the Peak show, Allie Peak Wilbur's does show this debuting now as a network wide show. If she'll stay for a minute, I'd like to get her take on the SEC on the recruits for the Florida Gators. Can you stand by? Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
All right, guys,
So
take care.
folks, let me remind you as we wrap up here with Allie before we talk about this recruiting class, which, by the way, is pretty darn good. Looks to me like, but Allie can tell you more about that than I can. Let me just say we want to thank our sponsors. And Titan MRI is certainly one of those ones that you want to know about because when you need an MRI, you just don't have time to think about it. And it happens at a time sometimes when you don't have the complete things you need as tools. Like sometimes you don't have an insurance. How do you get an MRI? They'll take your cash or card and they won't kill you. They'll take that there. They also have an ability to give you a schedule. If you can't come during the week during your job, they'll schedule it for you for nights or weekends. Also, if you're a little bit shy or get claustrophobic, they have bigger MRI machines to get you in there and get you through that. All because they want you to have a better customer experience for your MRI. TitanMRI.com. Well, Allie, I guess we can make some kind of evaluation here. You say the Gators did pretty good. They're going to wind up, I think, 11 in ESPN or 11 in anyway, 11 and 1, 10 in the other. What sticks out in your mind about this class? We know about Vernell Brown. We know about some of these. There are a lot of good players in this class. I don't know how to evaluate them. What do you say?
Well, so I think as a blanket statement, I think Billy Napier is a really, really good evaluator of talent. I think that most of the guys we sign, even if they are 3-star or lower 4-star guys, pan out, which hasn't always been the case at Florida. I think you can look at some of Dan Mullen's classes that on paper were really good classes, but guys that never really saw the field for us, either because they didn't qualify academically or because, they weren't as good as maybe their star rankings said that they were. I believe that everybody Napier brings here is a really good talent. He has an eye for finding these guys. I think it's also huge. We got Ben Hanks Jr. in this class. We got VB3. Getting guys that understand the legacy, I think is important, that care about the logo on the front of the jersey just as much as they care about the name on the back of the jersey. I think that is key. We held on to some guys. Hayward is one that comes to mind that Georgia was really after at the last minute. We missed out on a guy or two that, for the last 24 hours, we thought maybe we would flip. One of those would be Dallas Wilson from Oregon. From the people that I talked to, I think Florida thought it was going to be them up until it wasn't, and that transpired over the last 24 hours. I think that's way more about that kid than it is about this coaching staff. I think either A, he lied to them, or B, he had a change of heart at the very end, or more than likely Phil Knight dropped a very large, bundle of cash on his doorstep. I think Gator fans should be happy. The work that has been done in the last 2 weeks is astounding. I don't know that this is something we necessarily keep stats on, but I would love to see if there's been a class that has gone from 51st to 10th over a 2-week time period, because that's what happened. And it, like I said earlier in your show, it is out recruiting your record. He vastly outperformed that 7-5 record. This is the signing class of a program who was in the top 10 this year, and that's not where Florida has been at any point during this season. So I think Gator fans should be really happy. Somebody commented we only lost one recruit today. We lost a tight end to Florida State. There were rumors about this happening for the last few days. And what I've been told is that he wants to play wide receiver. Florida said, you are a tight end. And Florida State said, oh, you want to play wide receiver? Okay, you can come play wide receiver for us. So, I don't know that I really chalk that up to a huge loss. We didn't have a ton of scholarships to give. We want to save some for the transfer portal. So I don't really think that that's anything that hurts this team. But I think Gator fans should be really excited. We picked up some key positions. We got some wide receivers. We got DBs that I think can come in and compete. Hopefully, maybe we add a guy or two to this class between now and regular signing day, which I feel like early signing day has become regular signing day. And then let's see what we do in the transfer portal. But I think it was a great day to be a Gator.
Well, as one who is like a quadruple legacy yourself, how important is to get those legacies in there?
I think it's the only thing in the NIL era that keeps us from being a team of mercenaries, right? I think you have to have people that understand the history of the program. If the saying that if you don't understand your history, you're doomed to repeat it. I think it's so important to have guys that bleed orange and blue, because then they can teach the others how to bleed orange and blue. I remember Vernell Brown III running around on the football field when his dad played for the Gators. He was little. He was probably 5 years old, and it's such a cool moment that he is going to be wearing the jersey next year. What a great legacy. It's huge. It's so important.
Well, tell us a little bit about him as a player. They say he's gotten faster.
Yeah.
He's gotten faster. He's a terrific punt returner, kick returner, whatever. He's got all the right moves, the right techniques. Obviously, his daddy taught him a lot. He is going to bring other recruits with him. Those are pluses. He is, what is he, a 4-star?
He's either a high 4-star or a 5-star. He's the highest rated guy in this class.
And then Ben Hanks. Not many people know the story of Ben Hanks. I think it's important when Coach Spurrier, very proud of that. Here's a guy, the only guy in the history of his coaching career that I know of that Steve Spurrier went to the administration about to get them in school, because it's so important, not just as a player, but as a guy. He was he was slightly under the qualifications in Miami. He couldn't get in Florida, and Spurrier went to bat with the president to get Ben Hanks in. And it did not only did good, it did great, because he became a model citizen, successful businessman, and now here's his son carrying on the legacy. How important is that?
It's huge. And think about the impact that a decision, 25 years ago has on the program now. And we couldn't have necessarily had the foresight to see what would become, but that's a really cool story. And it is so important that we keep these ties to the past. It's what keeps this program. they're the legacy, they're the lifeblood of the program, right? Legacy players are the lifeblood of this program. They teach the other guys what it means to be a Gator. They care about the logo. And I think all of that is huge. And this class as a whole is one of the best classes Florida signed in a very long time, top to bottom, taking into account positions that needed to be filled, needs. It was a great one. And then you think about the pressure of trying to do it when you are struggling on the field, which they were for a lot of the season, and it makes it even more impressive.
The one story I remember about Ben Hanks and Spurrier, maybe you can recall this vaguely, is the story of the rubber bands. You know about that?
Uh-uh.
All right. They wore rubber bands all around their wrists, around
Okay.
their wrists together because they were binding, but you could stretch them.
Okay.
They were there's a commitment that you're going to have to stretch a little bit, and you can't stretch her, and then you have to have that elasticity in your relationship with the team. I forget exactly the story. I'm going to dig that up because that's a really good story. Ben Hanks wore a rubber band on his hand, I think, maybe all 4 years, or on his arm hand. So that's a neat story, isn't it?
That is. That's a really cool story. I love little tidbits like that.
All right, so give us one more rundown about your new show. I'm so proud of you. You're going to do is you're going to be like every Sunday, and what time, and who all you live up as guests besides Tony Barnhart?
So I think we'll probably go live at 8:00 on Sunday. Kind of got to talk with the producer on that. We're going to try and do 1 to 2 live shows a week. Probably, a half an hour. It's not going to be hours long, but then I will also try and have interviews that are recorded that we drop, a couple times a week. And I do think there's just so much to dive into to some of these other SEC programs that, we don't cover on my channel. Right. And so I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be interesting. There's never a lack of content in the SEC, particularly with the playoffs coming up and the bowl games. And, I don't know what I'm going to sleep, but I think this is going to be fun.
What the heck? Drink coffee. Hey, by the way, can you talk about your show for those who are not familiar with it? When did you start it?
Sure.
How long did you work on it? How did you make it work? What have been some of your best guests? And how did you get so many followers?
So followers, I don't know. We asked people on Twitter to start following. They did. YouTube has recommended our videos, and it's really helped it along. And I think some of the good guests have really helped. Urban Meyer has been on our show. You helped, arrange that. That was one of our biggest interviews that we've done. We've had pretty much everybody that played with my husband on at one point or the other, and that's been really fun to reminisce. A couple weeks ago, I had Mark Richt during Georgia Week. That was really cool. There's been just a lot of we've had a lot of really fun, neat guests over the years. The show's called A Peek Inside Gator Football, and it felt like there was somewhat of an opening on the YouTube platform specifically for Gator content. And if it was something I cared about and I was going to do the research on anyway, it made sense to just kind of put it out there.
Congrats, Allie Peak Wilbur. A peek inside the SEC, and here's a peek inside basketball. Franz Beard now just outside after a long day of going to Billy Donovan's. I've got basketball in mind. Billy Napier's press conference on recruiting. I heard you ask about 5 questions. And tonight, a terrific basketball team going 9-0. And tell us about the basketball game.
Well, Florida got off to a very sluggish start, and Denzel Aberdeen comes in the ball game and really gets the Gators going. This is one of the things that's been really pleasant about this team is that each night it seems somebody new really gets the team going and provides the spark. And once they get going, they're a very difficult team to defend. Tonight, Denzel gets 10 quick ones off the bench when the Gators, they're down 18-9. And from that point on, they outscored Virginia by 27 points, which is pretty darn good because that's a good basketball team they just beat. I mean, a very good basketball
Go
team.
to sleep here and say good night. Thank you, Allie. Appreciate it. Take
All
care.
right. Talk to you later.
Bye. So is it Denzel or Denzel? Because I want it to be Denzel.
They call him both, and he's never corrected me. I've called him
Love,
Denzel. He's never corrected me.
I love the name Denzel Aberdeen. He was my favorite names
Yeah.
of all time. But I mean, I got to say, Condon is a heck of a basketball player. I know Walter Clayton Jr. gets all the pub, whatever. They're 3 guards. Condon is unbelievable for the way he goes to the board, gets the rebound, can take it to the hoop, can run the break. He's a ferocious rebounder, a good shooter, attacker. I love this guy. A sophomore.
Well, he's just a sophomore, and I'll tell you, it was funny because I was talking with the scout from the Phoenix Suns the other day down in Orlando, and Condon was really, really tearing it up against Efton Reed, who is a 7'1" guy for Wake Forest. And I made the comment. I said, Alex Condon is 6 feet 11 inches tall, and in 2 years he's going to be a superstar. Efton Reed is 7 feet 1 inches tall, and in 2 years he's going to be 7 feet 1. And the guy just laughed. He said, I'll tell you what. He says Alex Condon is going to play in the NBA for a lot of years, and I agree with that.
I love this game, man. He what a great work ethic. He's a
Just
hustling guy. Just handles the ball for a big man. Nice touch. Just a wonderful player to watch. I love him. All right, so now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
he and Thomas Hawk, I got to tell you what, those guys have got to be the two most underrated recruits for last year. And now they're sophomores, both of them getting so much better. This is going to be a tough team for anybody to beat the rest of the way. But I got to tell you what, the SEC's up 11-1 in the ACC
Oh,
challenge.
no.
And the ACC, we think of the ACC, that's the basketball league.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I think the SEC is a pretty good basketball league right now.
Yeah, and by the way, the SEC is not doing as well as they should in versus the ACC in the rankings. The ACC all of a sudden has got a bunch of teams. Hey, you were at Billy's presser today. I heard 4 or 5 good questions. Characterize how it was. He got obviously a very good class. Your thoughts about how they got it? Who impressed you?
Well, I'll tell you what impressed me the most, buddy, and that's the fact that Florida got all of its guys signed, did not have a single guy flip from them, whereas in the last 2 weeks, Billy Napier flipped 12 guys to the Gators. Now, that's really saying something in this era when everybody is flipping and you got people going in the portal right and left. I don't know if you saw Kentucky. Kentucky lost Dane Key, who I think is going to be the hottest receiver out there. He went in the portal tonight. But everybody's going in the portal. People, kids are flipping, flopping, all this other stuff. Billy Napier held his class together. All the kids signed who were committed. They're going to pick up another one, I think, tomorrow. This kid, Onis Canabano, or I can't pronounce his name, but he's a Tennessee commit, didn't sign today. Think he's going to sign with the Gators tomorrow, which will be just one more addition to the class. It's a marvelous secondary class. He's got really good running backs coming into an already stacked running backs room, and got the linemen that he wanted, pretty much so. Didn't get the Thomas kid from Jacksonville Reigns, but that was another one that you had to flip to get him. And he went to LSU. I'm told LSU offered him a gazillion NIL dollars, and that's where he went. But one of the things Billy said was that I thought was interesting was, yeah, you make the good relationships with them now because you never know, they may be coming back to you on the flip flop on this.
A lot of the players he said they finished second on they got on the flops.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of guys that they finished second on who are going to get first on very, very soon, because you got some of these guys that went someplace else that are going to come to Florida. It's just going to be that way. And when you're doing it the right way, and I'm the one thing that I've come to really appreciate about Billy, and you can appreciate it more when you're winning, and he made the comment today about winning does cure a lot of ills. But the one thing I do appreciate about him is he's done it the right way. He's been patient. He's continued to, and it's paying off now. And I think Florida is in for a continuously good run for quite some time now. And when you talk to kids and you talk to their parents and you find out about what they all say about Billy Napier, what they all say about the way Florida does things, I think it is really good for the future, buddy. I think it bodes very, very well. Um, I got to tell you what. I talked to some people tonight who said, I sure do like Billy Napier now more than I did on November 1st." I said,
Yeah. Everybody thought he was the greatest. Thinks he's a great coach now. The ones that didn't get on board before. They're
"What
finally
a
come on.
difference a month makes, right?"
There's room. Come on, we got room for you. So,
Yeah.
hey, France, I know you've had a long day. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this after the basketball game, and we got you back tomorrow night on the
Yep.
Orange and Blue Bloods, and we'll talk a little more about basketball and what's ahead. What bowl game? I'm still holding up for that gum Gator Bowl, France. It's one I want.
Gator, but let me tell you what, it's going to be Gator Bowl, Florida, and Duke, and I've got that on pretty good authority.
That was my call last week. I hope it will be that. I'm sure am.
Yep.
Thank you, Francis. Great job. Don't forget to read him, folks. He didn't just talk, he also writes. Check him out. Gatorbeat.com. Thank you. All right, the great fan spirit coming to you tonight, folks, from out in the parking lot. I mean, how dedicated is that? Good stuff. Thank you, France. Tomorrow night, we'll have Ben Troop back on, and we'll have the gang on. We'll have Lauren Meadows, and we'll talk more about what's ahead and how this thing is still an amazing story, how this whole team came together the week of UCF. Amazing. So I want to tell you about something else that's amazing. That's the people that we have sponsoring us at Renstar Medical Research. 500 people you never met in your life. They do so many good things in the community, and they're watching out for our health. Friends of mine, I got to tell you, in addition to the fact that Joe Sorrentino is the co-owner, along with his friend from high school days, Mary Brantley, married to Scott, do a terrific job there and running that company. Also, Joey Sorrentino, you might know the name. He played for Florida under Urban Meyer, walk-on, great young player. Urban Meyer loved him. He's now a dentist in Ocala and doing a very successful dentist in Ocala. Has his own company there, Marion Dental, and he has one in Lady Lake, a very big one, and he is really terrific. I went to see him. He was very helpful to me. I'm so proud of what Joey's done as a father, his kids. I'm so proud of the things he's done there as a former Gator player too. So anyway, folks, I want to say thank you to Winstar Medical Research for all they do, and they'd like you to know that your data is needed. They would like you to take part in these clinical trials. They put them on all the time. They have them ongoing. Check out their website, winstar.net, to find out which one it is right now. You could take part in it. You get access to things like investigational medications in some cases. You also get some equipment things that you can try out, and your research is needed to be able to help these companies. The data they use send off to companies to prescribe medications for us in our community. Check them out, Renstar.net. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. I want to thank our special guest. Great to see Alec. Congratulations on our news show. Be sure and tune in on Sunday about 8 o'clock. It's going to be a peek inside the SEC. Thanks again to the great Tony Barnhart. Appreciate him very much. And the hardworking man in show business, Franz Beard. I'm Buddy Martin, back tomorrow night. Same time, same station. Tell your friends and neighbors. If you like SEC sports, check out SEC Sidelines and the Buddy Martin Show right here on this channel. Good night, folks.